Hey everybody, this is Trevor and you're watching my channel, Social Dilemma. Thank you for coming today. And today's topic is the commission hearing that's going on in Ottawa over the trucker convoy, the protest that happened here just this past January, February of 2022. And politicians and police, CSIS, all kinds of organizations that are governmental are being held to the coals, so to speak, and they're being questioned on the Emergencies Act, which is a form of martial law, and it is invoked when the government feels that it's threatened and its way of operating is going to be taken down. So it invokes martial law. That's what the Emergencies Act is. And the Emergencies Act has been invoked twice. First, it was invoked by Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and it was 50 years ago, and it was called the War Measures Act. And in the late 80s, 1989, I believe, the government of Canada changed it because War Measures Act doesn't sound all that appealing, so they changed it to the Emergencies Act. It's basically the same thing. It is martial law, and the government will declare it when it feels threatened, or I guess it feels like the democracy is being threatened. Whether internally or externally, the government will invoke it. So it invoked it here this past winter, 2022, because of the mostly truckers who went to Ottawa to protest the COVID mandates. And, it's being proven. This is day 25 of the commission hearing. And it's been proven, politicians and police alike are admitting there was no violence committed by anyone at the protest. Ottawa citizens are saying, well, my ears hurt because of the honking and whatnot. That's it. There was no physical violence. Nobody assaulted any politician or any police officer, any citizen, nothing. Okay, there was bouncy houses. They had barbecues. What it was a protest. Okay, you got to remember, I'm sure everybody can remember here, February 2022, we're going into 2 years of government COVID lockdowns, mandates, crushing the economy. I don't have to go over this and over it, okay? Because today I want to talk more about protests. But, that's what they were there for. So that's what the protest was about. Now, we've had protests here in Canada before, and I want to kind of compare this protest to a protest that happened here in June 2020. Now, in May 2020, the dear leader of Canada, Justin Trudeau, with the swipe of a pen, signed an order in council saying that, basically semi-auto rifles, AR-15 style rifles are now banned in Canada. Okay? So in June 2020, the gun lobbyists organizations here in Canada and gun owners, well, they went to protest at Parliament in Ottawa. But it was all regulated. It was all by permission only, okay? The government gave them the permission. They had to file for all the, this is what we want to do. So the government said, okay, you can protest Justin Trudeau's order in council to ban certain firearms, but here's the time you can do it. Here's the place you can do it. You'll be surrounded by police. To me, that's not a protest. That's a permission slip from a group of adults telling another group of adults how they can live. Okay, it's like your 5-year-old gets out of line and you say, well, if you do what I say, or I'll take your toys away. Okay? It's the same thing. It's the same thing what we do with government. It's like a small group of adults. That's how we treat the large group of adults. So in June 2020, the government allowed gun owners to have a protest, but it was by permission only, okay? They had to file for everything. It wasn't just 5,000 gun owners which I believe was the number of firearm owners in Canada that showed up. I mean, they had to have permission. They couldn't just show up willy nilly anytime they wanted. It was like, here's the time, here's the place. You do what we say. How is that protesting? That's not. That's just getting permission to do something that you should have the natural born right to do, and that is, hey, if government's, one set of adults is doing something against, you should have the right, the freedom, which falls under freedom of speech, which we do not have here in Canada. We absolutely do not have that. But you should have the freedom to protest. And as long as you like I say, you don't want to incite violence. It's not about violence. It's about just saying, hey, citizens have had enough, and we would like to, protest as to what you're doing against us, okay? But again, it's just like government treats its citizens like a parent treats a 5-year-old, and that's how it is. Okay, you either have to have permission to get your point across, and then it doesn't work, or you just do what the truckers did, and not just truckers, Canadians who were tired of the mandates went to Ottawa and said, hey, please, let us go back to work. Let us go back to work. Get rid of these mandates, okay? And so I want to read you a quote, because this is day 25 of the commission here. And this just shows you, again, how involuntary we are with government, okay? We are under duress as far as I'm concerned. This is not a voluntary organization. So I'll read a quote here, okay, from Michael Sabia. It's Canada's Deputy Finance Minister, and I quote, "Don't want your bank account frozen, then leave the protest." Okay, I'm going to read that again. So this is a quote from the Deputy Finance Minister here in Canada. His name's Michael Sabia. And as quotes, "Don't want your bank account frozen, then leave the protest." Okay, so we can't go and protest to government without some kind of threat of violence. And that is a threat of violence. We will financially cripple you unless you get out of here. Get out. We don't like this protest. We'll take your financial freedom away, your ability to pay your bills. So what's the option again? So you have two options. You have to apply for the permission to have a protest, or, how it should be, freedom of speech to protest when something isn't sitting right with people. If you do that to the government without their permission, they will threaten you with the violence, financial violence. And that's a huge thing. That's the truckers left, not just truckers, everybody who went there. They made the choice. They're like, hey, you know what, don't, I got to pay the mortgage, and, so it comes out, it's been coming out. This is day 25, and this is the kind of things that these people that we put in charge of our lives are saying about us. They don't care about us. It's like, you protest against us, and we'll take your financial, and that's a huge threat. That's a huge threat. That's why people are like, well, I'm leaving Ottawa. And I remember when people left, and it was disappointing, but, you got to pay the bills, right? So, that's my take on that there. So basically, protesting here in Canada, we don't have freedom of speech. You have to apply for permission to have a protest, like they did with the firearms in June 2020, which went nowhere. And on the other hand, you don't want, what do? You don't want firearms owners going, without permission to the Parliament Hill. I mean, the government would obviously call out the military and the police, and it would just, it just goes nowhere. But on the other hand, why is government always fighting? It seems like they're fighting against the citizens. Well, people just want to live free. That's all we want. We just want to live free. And The noose of the lack of freedom just gets tighter and tighter around citizens' throats. So there you go. You apply for permission to protest, goes nowhere. You don't apply for permission, you just you go and protest. The government uses threats of violence against you, financial violence, and so there you go. Which kind of brings me to now I'm going to talk about. So that's that part done. That's my take on protests. I do believe it's everyone's natural born right to protest in a non-violent way. I'm kind of talking like the Gandhi kind of way. I do believe. I think we shouldn't have to apply for permission to protest, but do it in a way that isn't violent. Okay? Because I believe in freedom of speech. Okay? But on the other hand, here's how I feel about people who protest against government doing something to them. Whether you've applied for the permission or you didn't, like they did with the trucker convoy. I think it's the same as... I'm going to draw an analogy here, and I want you to really think about this. But this is exactly how protesting the government is akin to. It would be the same as people protesting out front of Tony Soprano's house saying, leave my business alone, leave my business alone. And Tony Soprano, you think that Tony Soprano is going to leave your business alone? No, it's like Tony Soprano's government. Okay, he's never going to leave you alone. So that's protesting. That's protesting. That's just how I see it. But I don't know. People are like, well, how else do we do it? How do we get government's attention? I go, I don't know. I mean, you get their permission to protest, and it's goes nowhere. You don't get the government's permission to protest, and they shut you down. I mean, it can, they bring out the military and police, and that's no good. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants violence. We just want to live free. So I don't know. Voting? How does that work? I mean, you vote out one bum and you just bring in another bum. And the policies are vaguely different. There's nothing really the same. That doesn't seem to help. I don't know. Vote with your dollars? Well, voting with your dollars, look what it did to the people who donated to the Freedom Convoy here. That just, happened here in February. Their bank accounts were frozen. So, I don't know. It seems like a lose-lose situation. I don't know. I know I'm trying to offer some... I tried my best to offer some things, but I really have to point out right now about protesting, okay? It goes nowhere either way. Either you have the permission to do it or you don't. It doesn't seem to work. Again, protesting, whether you're doing it with permission or not, you're just like a business owner with a picket out front of Tony Soprano's house, protesting to Tony Soprano to stop taking your money away and stop hurting you. It's just not going to happen. So I don't know. Maybe we as a species, a human species, we need to mature and grow up and realize that politics is not the solution to our problems. Politics is, you got to open your eyes and see that it's more of the problems to any solutions that we're trying to come up with. So I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, these kind of quotes, you can find them every day, especially from the Canadian politicians. I'll read it again. Michael Sabia, Canada's Deputy Finance Minister, quote, "Don't want your bank account frozen, then leave the protest." I mean, that's just how? How do we allow people to continue to talk to us like that? It doesn't make any sense. And I don't know. What's the solution? Vote them in, vote them out? That just seems to be the revolving door of politics. Vote with your money. Well, again, your bank accounts will get frozen. Do we just bury our heads in the sand and just, business as usual? I don't know. I don't have, I want a solutions to this. I just would like, why can't, I mean, this system of politics, we try to put in people that will listen to the people and go, okay, I'm going to govern by, whatever the Bill of Rights, Charter of Rights, Constitution is, but it never is. It's never done that way. So I don't know. I just would like peaceful solutions to dealing with things. And I can't say that government is the peaceful way to do it. This can't be. I mean, you apply for the permit to protest, and the protests, you're so controlled, you're so condensed on where and when, and here's the area, so there's the amount of people you can have. And then when you don't like what's happening, you just have what the government deems as an illegal protest, and they shut you down through threats of financial violence and having giant walls of heavily armored and armed public sector workers in front of you. I mean, of course, we don't want violence. That was never and that's come out. That's come out in the Freedom Convoy protests. There was no violence. No one there wanted to hurt anybody. They just wanted Justin Trudeau to come out and talk. It's all you want. Like, I mean, no politicians came out. None of the videos I ever saw, there was no politicians walking the streets of Ottawa saying, hey, let me write down your concerns. Talk to me. There was no Conservative, obviously no Liberal, and no NDP. Politicians came out and talked. I just, if they were felt threatened, I don't know, go grab half a dozen police officers and have them walk with you then. They didn't do anything. So I don't know. I don't know. That's my take on protesting. I believe it is your right, everyone's natural born right to like a Gandhi-style, nonviolent protest. But yet, on the other hand, protesting, it just seems like you're a business owner shouting at Tony Soprano to stop robbing you. I don't know. It doesn't seem to work. So, but keep it now. It is our right. It's our. We should have, at least here around the world, freedom of speech to talk up and shout out what in a nonviolent way. We should have the freedom of speech to protest, I guess, is what I'm saying. But I don't know. It's a social dilemma, isn't it? It's a social dilemma to protest or not to protest. So there you go. I am disappointed that a politician would say that. Don't do what we say. Don't go to these protests unless you want your bank accounts frozen, which is, I think that is violence right there. That is violence. That's financial violence on people. So that's my take on it. I hope everybody's doing as well as they can, and stay free, okay? Bye-bye.